This is the Financially Simple Podcast, the show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. The content in the show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor or conduct your own due diligence. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor only conducting business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
And welcome back to Financially Simple. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread. And today we're answering the question, how much should a business owner pay for a house? That's right. We've been dealing with cash flow. And in cash flow, we often talk about the income we make. And we spent several episodes talking about how we get paid, where we should spend our money. And we also deal with expenses. We've been spending some time talking about taxes, and I want to segue out of taxes and deal with the house. According to Dr. Stanley, he said nothing has a greater impact on your wealth and your consumption than your choice of house and neighborhood. Dr. Thomas Stanley has written many books, and this is in the book called Stop Acting Rich. And he digs deep into the area of house. And he went on to say, if you live in a high-priced home in an exclusive community, you will spend more than you should, and your ability to save and build your wealth will be compromised. People who live in million-dollar homes are not millionaires. They may be high-income producers, but by trying to emulate glittering rich millionaires, they are living in a treadmill existence. Man, that's powerful to think about it. So I asked the question, how much should a business owner pay for a house? I quoted Dr. Stanley because he's written several of the books to whom I really enjoy. In fact, I'm going to put a link inside our blog post on Financially Simple to several of these books that I have read myself over the years. I began reading his 1996 book called The Millionaire Next Door. It is a great book talking about how millionaires truly live. He then went on to write in the year 2000, The Millionaire Mind and How Millionaires Think. And then he finished up with, in 2009, Stop Acting Rich. So he's written several books, and those are just the top three that I like personally. But I'm going to put a link to that in our blog post on Financially Simple about those three books. It's a great series of books to think about how millionaires think. And why do I say that? Because whenever I work with business owners, we often deal with buying a house. And I'm often asked, Justin, how big of a house should I buy? And ultimately, it boils back to the question, what do you want to accomplish in life? Another favorite book of mine is one by Robert Kiyosaki. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In fact, you may or may not know this. I read 5 books every year, no matter what year I'm in. As you know, I read a book a week, but these 5 books have impacted my life positively. Robert Kiyosaki was the very first book I ever read all the way through cover to cover. Powerful book to me. He writes in his book some interesting thoughts. The other 4 books, by the way, is I love to read Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace because it's, to me, the opposite of Robert Kiyosaki. I love to read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I love to read The Richest Man in Babylon. And I like to read my Bible. I read the Bible, especially Ecclesiastes and Proverbs. Great coins of wisdom for us business people. Nonetheless, in Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he specifically speaks about his rich dad's house. And he describes the house. He describes the house in detail. And he talks about a house not being an asset. Not being an asset. And you're like, well, time out, Justin. I thought a house went on your financial statement as an asset. And if you had a mortgage against it, it went as a liability. Technically, it does. And that's the way banks think about it. But Robert Kiyosaki describes an asset as something producing an income. And I love that definition. I love the definition of an asset as something producing an income. Or I'm going to modify it, or something allowing you to produce an income could be an asset as well. So your health could be an asset, which in effect could be exactly what he's saying. So I realize it's not the technical term of what bankers would say or most financial people would say, that a house is truly an asset. Some would argue that Robert was wrong, that Robert Kiyosaki's promotion that your house is not an asset is just wrong. In fact, back in 2004, 2007, there was a huge real estate run up. Not to the tune that we're witnessing from 2014 to present, 2019 as I record this, but in 2004, 2007, there's a huge housing market run up. I can remember contractors going out and quitting jobs at nice Fortune 500 companies, going out and borrowing $600,000, building a house, sitting in it for 2 years and selling it, building a house, sitting in it for 2 years and selling it, and watching these houses double in a very short time period. Currently, as I'm watching the marketplace, Nashville, Tennessee is having a major bubble take place. I'd say bubble. They're having a major increase in the housing market. Some would argue right now, well, if I'm a business owner, I need to go out and buy as big a house as possible so I can watch the home appreciate in value greatly, thus multiplying my net worth. So that I'm going to say, not a good idea. That's why I lean on Robert Kiyosaki's definition of a house. A house is not an asset. A house is not something you want to try to grow wealth off of. Your business is an asset. It produces income. House is not. Now I'm talking about your primary residence. Okay. I'm not talking about rental property or commercial real estate. I want to give you some data here that I found, and some of this is some older data, but the U.S. Census from 1963 to 2008 showed that new homes appreciate by about 5.4%. 5.4%. That's pretty amazing to me. The National Association of Realtors showed that the same time period from 1968 to 2009, houses appreciated by roughly 5.4%. Pretty impressive. The Case-Shiller Index actually went from 1987 to 2009 and went by 3.45%. Pretty amazing. I give you those dates because you're like, man, Justin, that's not too bad. This is a 5% increase in my house. If I can get a 5% increase, but I can go out and buy a huge house and I'll have some nice increase. Hold on there, Skippy. Between the year 2000 and 2019, housing experienced an average inflation rate of 2.35%. For a 19-year period, if you move the bookends around, housing appreciated at 2.35. See, whenever I gave you the 5.4% rates and the 4.4 and all those numbers I mentioned earlier, when I gave you those rates, those are ending right before the market crashed, the housing market crashed. I'm going to put a link to those on the blog, by the way, so you can see all those particular indexes and where I recite those from.
You're listening to the Financially Simple Podcast. Show your support by subscribing to this and our other educational business channels at financiallysimple.com.
Recently, I had a friend go and apply for a mortgage. Recently, like in 2019. And the bank approved this individual for an ungodly number. It was crazy. He called me. He's like, Justin, you won't believe this, but they just approved me for this number. He's like, I was amazed. Back in 2014, my wife and I, as you may know, listen to the podcast, we built our dream house. We had a dream to live on a farm. So now we own 60, 70, 80 acres. I don't even know anymore on the Tennessee River. And we live on a small farm. We have about 7 acres of it fenced in with goats and chickens. And I have a huge garden that I need some water on right now because we haven't had rain in 3 weeks in Tennessee. But I remember when I was going through the process of getting ready to build this house, we purchased the original 28 acres cash. We paid cash for that land and we've been saving for a while. We paid cash for it. And then I wanted to build a house that met our needs. We went to the bank and the bank approved us for over $800,000 in lending. $800,000. You're like, Justin, that's not bad. I live in California. $800,000 is par for the course. We live in Boston. I was talking with one of our listeners. He was going through social media. As you may know, we're on Twitter, LinkedIn, all that stuff. And he's a subscriber to our newsletter. I know I haven't mentioned our newsletter in a while. Go to Financially Simple and sign up for the newsletter. Some of the best writing I do goes out every week on the newsletter. Anyways, he was reaching out to us. I forget which channel it was now. And he's like, Justin, your prices are so much cheaper than those up here in Boston. I'm like, yeah, buddy, I was up in Boston last year. And oh my goodness, that was an expensive place to live. So $800,000 may not be a big deal up there, but for here in East Tennessee, where the average cost for a house here in Knoxville, Tennessee is about $171,000, $800,000 is flipping a lot of money. Okay. That is crazy to me. So me and Miss Emily, whenever they said that, we laughed. We actually decided to follow my own advice. I'm a practice what you preach person. We wanted to keep our residence as small as feasible for our family, yet still achieve our dream of living on the farm. So many people go out and they buy the biggest house they can afford. They can buy the biggest house they can afford. And it is detrimental to your long-term success. I'm going to quote Dr. Thomas Stanley again. And in his book, The Millionaire Next Door, he gives some interesting studies here. Now, this has been some time back, but the numbers, even if you adjusted them for inflation, are just quite amazing. And again, I'm going to highly recommend you read this book. It's one of my favorites out there for young business owners who's trying to understand this world of money. Half of millionaires have lived in the same house for more than 20 years. Think about that. They live in the same house. They're not moving from one little house to the next house, to the next house, to the next house. In fact, I was watching an interview with Warren Buffett, who's still living in what he calls a meager, what I would call as a mansion, a meager house. And he hasn't upsized to some lavish, ridiculous size home. That's not what he's done. See, if you want to be truly wealthy, the size house you buy matters. It matters greatly. Dr. Stanley went on to describe in his book, The Millionaire Next Door, that 90% of millionaires live in homes valued below $1 million. In fact, 28.3% live in homes valued at $300,000 or less. Well, Justin, how big was your house? So if we exclude the real estate, we spent building our house right at $300,000 to build our house. It's 2,400 square foot. And in fact, it wouldn't have been that much except we wanted wraparound porches. We wanted metal roof. We have a gorgeous black metal roof on a white board and batten siding house. We wanted some things that we splurged on. We put barnwood floor, which if you know anything about barnwood floor, it's extremely expensive. We put that in the house. So we could have gone out and built a $500,000, $600,000, $800,000 house. We didn't. We built a small little house. People come over and like, man, Justin, we thought your house would be much bigger. I'm practicing what I preach, friends. I don't mind telling you this. This is who I am. I have nothing really to hide. Now, we did buy a bunch of land that we're going to timber and that we're going to do some other things eventually in our family planning as far as subdivision and some development stuff. But our house itself isn't huge and elaborate. So many business owners, they reach success and they go out and they spend $700,000, $800,000, $1 million on houses, and it ends up harming their financial lives. On average, according to Dr. Stanley, millionaires have mortgages that is less than 1/3 of the value of their home. By the way, that's me. That's me. Our mortgage on our house is about $260,000 right now. Our total farmland and all that's well above 2/3. So I believe that at least you should have half equity in your house. Now, I realize I'm going to be doing a podcast in a few episodes from now talking about why you should have a big mortgage. I realize that. On our house, we have about a $265,000 mortgage. Our house is currently appraised. We built it for $300,000 and was appraised for a little bit more than that. So we had some equity in it when we built it. It ended up being appraised at $400-something thousand. So we have some good equity, but we borrowed more than about 3/4 to build our house. And I'm okay with that. Now we have a lot of equity because of our real estate and the appreciation. So I'm okay with that. Dr. Stanley went on to say, if you really want to reduce your housing bill, join the 67,000 millionaires who live in mobile homes. Yeah, you heard me right. Mobile homes. I'm probably not going to do that. I've lived in mobile homes. I've owned mobile homes in the past. I don't like them. So I'm not so concerned to become millionaire status that I want to do that. In fact, buying the farm is probably not the wisest move we could have made. In fact, I know it wasn't. It wasn't a very wise move long term. It would have been better for me to invest the money in the stock market and allow the stock market to do its thing. But we have a certain style of life that we wanted to live, and I'm sure you do too. My recommendation is ultimately to buy the lowest valued house possible, that will allow you to reach the success levels that you want to reach within your goals and dreams. If you desire a big house, then you can buy a big house. I'm not saying don't, just I don't need your permission. If you want to buy a big house, buy a big house. But I'm going to leave you with Dr. Stanley's quote today. I'll leave you with his quote. And he says, and I'm going to say it one more time. Dr. Stanley wrote, and I agree with him, nothing has a greater impact on your wealth and your consumption than your choices of house and neighborhood. If you live in a high-priced home in an exclusive community, you will spend more than you should, and your ability to save and build wealth will be compromised. People who live in million-dollar homes are not millionaires. They may be high-income producers, but by trying to emulate glittering rich millionaires, they are living a treadmill existence. Friends, I don't want to live a treadmill existence. I want to build true wealth, and I want to build true wealth while at the same time accomplishing my dreams and my goals. I spent hours on the tractor this weekend, just sweating like a dog, bush hogging, pollen going everywhere, but I was living my dream of throwing on some shorts and a t-shirt. Nope, I wasn't in overalls, but shorts and a t-shirt and some flip-flops and getting out there in the sun and enjoying what God's created. So my challenge to you is this: buy the lowest valued house possible that allows you to reach the level of success that you want to reach, while at the same time allowing you to accomplish your dreams and your goals. Friends, with that, I'm going to challenge you to take a look at the Financially Simple blog for this podcast. We'll have links on there to these books that I recommend by Dr. Thomas Stanley. They're outstanding books. Outstanding. I agree with so much of what he says. With that, I will say life is hard, life is good, and life can be frustrating. Money does not have to be. We're going to continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, y'all go out and make this the best week yet.
You've been listening to the Financially Simple podcast. For more business and personal financial help and information, head over to financiallysimple.com today.